really good examples of a casserole. People familiar with casseroles? Yeah, okay, that's pretty, I mean, casseroles are not a Minnesotan exclusive thing. Hot dish, on the other hand, that's kind of a Minnesota's thing. So if you've got kind of a food like this and you're in Minnesota, it might be called a hot dish. If there's tater tots involved, you know, it might be called a hot dish. If you are at a Lutheran church potluck down in the basement, I can tell you it is a hot dish. So what's the commonalities between these two? You're going to have a baking dish. You know, you can have one that's like that or like this, you know, with the clear sides and everything. So either of those will work. You can make a good hot dish with either of those. Key components that you'll find. You'll usually have some sort of starch, rice. I like wild rice, that's pretty good. Potatoes, noodles, tater tots. Some sort of soup. You gotta have a binder in there. Get some cream of mushroom, cream of chicken. Usually something crispy's up on top there. And you'll find these really throughout the Midwest. So casserole, how do you differentiate? Casseroles don't necessarily need to have a meat. We saw a green bean casserole back there, right? That did not have a meat. But if there's fish or poultry involved, I'd say more likely to be termed a casserole. That's just my opinion. But if you've got some ground beef or some ground turkey involved, well, you're getting in the hot dish territory there. If there's tater tots, yeah, we're talking hot dish. And this, you'll see this mostly in Minnesota. It kind of bleeds out to the edges because, you know, some people escape. A hot dish is usually an entree, I would say, more than like a side dish, which is kind of the casserole thing.
Keep them all in.
Yeah. Okay, so I think here's my contention, is that hot dish extends casserole, because you got most of the same stuff going on in a hot dish, but there's a few different things. And, you know, so to qualify, you know, some areas of Minnesota, you get into outstate Minnesota, there's some zealots there. It's everything. It's hot dish. And, you know, but some areas have both of them. Okay, so how do we model this? Okay, well, here we go. So here we got a class of hot dish that's extending casserole. It's in the cookbook/bake/type namespace. And we're using the casserole class because we're going to extend it. So now we don't have to use that whole long thing there when we put it in the extends. And we got some annotations going in there. And so if we're going to do this, if we're doing it this way, you're going to have to like override what types of meats are in the hot dish versus the casserole, the starch type, the user state. User is in church basement, you're going to have to override that. It's a little bit unwieldy. So we're going to make an interface for baked dishes. So an interfacial layout, here's the properties and methods that you got to have a baked dish. You got to have the meat type, you got to have the starch type, which type of dish it is, vegetable, soup, oven temp, oven time. Then you can kind of get the idea, you know, what's going on here. And then you can apply different methods, some getters and setters, because you don't want to have those properties to be all public. You got to keep those private, and then use the getters and the setters to get those out of there. Okay, so now we can model this a little bit better, right? So we don't have to extend every single thing. We can have them extend the interface, and then you can have your green bean baked dish, your tuna baked dish, chicken baked dish, and your tater tot baked dish. But now that we got those objects, you know, what are we going to do? How are we going to differentiate between them? So we need a service. So here is our baked dish type checker. So here we're going to do, we're saying we got two parameters here when you're constructing this service. You need the baked dish, right? So that's coming, we're saying it has to fill the baked dish interface requirements. And you need the location of the cook. That's going to be very important as we go forward. But we don't want to have you manually pass in that cook location every time. So you're going to get that from the container, as we're going to find out here. You're going to find out the cook location from the container. Okay. So here we go. Here we're getting to the meat of it, if you know what I mean. So here's some of our methods we're going to put on this service. Is the cook in Minnesota? So, we get the cook location and the state, and if it's Minnesota, right? And then we can say, is the cook in Minnesota? So these are just, each of these will return a true or false. And you can find out if this baked dish has tater tots or has meat. Or is the meat ground beef? Right? Yeah, is this the main dish? Okay, so here we go. Here's the key thing here. So now you can define your baked dish type. And you can say if it's in Minnesota, okay. If it's in a church basement, we're going straight to hot dish right there. If it has tater tots, straight to hot dish. Has meat and it's ground beefy meat and it's a main dish, well, we're going to say hot dish. Otherwise, go to casserole, right? So that's my opinion about how you define a hot dish versus a casserole. And so you need your services YAML file, and that's where we're going to use. We're going to put the cook location and use dependency injection to put that into the service so that you don't have to call that every single time. Who wants to do that? Okay, but here's the thing. What if you have a different opinion? So you can make your own My Baked Dish Type check service. And you can extend that baked dish type check. And now you can override the get baked dish type method, and you can put in some, different things. You could say that tater tots alone are not enough to be a hot dish. It's got to have all that other stuff too. Okay, well, that's your opinion. And you could say that you could also have a hot dish outside of Minnesota. Okay, well, I'll allow it. It's your decision. And then you just override it in the services YAML file, and you put your class in there to override the ID there of the baked dish type check. So there we go. Now you can decide, and you don't just have to let me tell you which way to go. So.
Now you see why I had him go last.